Great. Okay, and as a few other folks are trickling in, let me start this presentation. So it's a small group, so I'd like to keep it as interactive as possible. So please feel free to jump in with any questions, comments, especially as you think about use cases that could work for your classroom. So our goal with Pace AI is really to use AI to augment and extend teachers and learners in the ESL context. So we're really talking about English language learners, English for speakers of other languages, and English as a second language. And so the topic of this session is thinking about how our AI can tailor ESL lessons for multi-level classes, especially in hybrid and asynchronous learning models. Now, I know some of you shared that you're still teaching in person. There's also a lot of great use cases for our AI platform in person as well, in terms of creating more personalization in the flow of a classroom. But the use cases that we'll be talking about here will really focus on that hybrid context and distance learning context. So a little bit of background on us. So Pace AI is an AI native English as a second language platform. We were incubated and spun out of the Allen Institute for AI Research up in Seattle. And we started out working with industrial affiliates, organizations, and working with adults who needed English for vocational purposes or for special contexts. And today we partner with some of the largest community college districts in California, school districts across the country, and also immigrant education programs. So we also have global learners in over 95 countries, and our team is a team of TEFL-certified educators, as well as our own kind of professional training is in AI research and engineering. And so a little bit of background on myself. I was previously in a PhD program at MIT, and I left that to build Pace AI with my co-founder, who's in the session here with us, Mai Tran. And we're all a team of TEFL certified English teachers, and we've all have experience working with adults in that career upskilling context. So it's really about kind of bringing those two worlds together. And I see, Kevin, you wrote in the chat that you're at a primarily Hispanic institution. I think that's something I'll keep in mind as I show you some of these materials and our demo as well, that we have a lot of great use cases around students who are, Spanish speaking, for example, or other come from other native languages, and they need translations for their content. So our platform, we have a lot of different use cases with different partners, but I really want to call out our work with open enrollment models. So we have a seats-based license model where we track enrollment numbers, time on task, and other kinds of student progress metrics by skills-based competency areas. And in the open enrollment model, that means that we support kind of non-credit and credit models where students might be coming in on week 2, they might be enrolling late off of a wait list from an overflow, something like that. They also might be coming in and out, so a bit more of that revolving door where students might be here in the second week, gone in the third, and back in the fourth. So those kinds of enrollment models are ones that we have worked with our partners. And a few particular cases I'd like to call out is with our platform, you're able to manage your classes for students with this kind of enrollment pattern or attendance pattern. So for students who have that sporadic attendance, we track the time on task and the time spent in our platform. And for those with late enrollment, we've also worked in an overflow class model where our platform is plugged into an existing class, and the students who come into our platform through that class are otherwise not going to be served by that class. So where the demand of enrollment exceeds the supply of seats available, our model has been used to create these overflow classes. And so this way, these students can continue to get that instruction for English as a second language without being actually enrolled in that core class. And finally, the use case I want to highlight is asynchronous lesson content. And so especially for classrooms with a hybrid or distance learning component, our platform is a great way to provide additional resources and learning support outside of the classroom. I'm reading Kevin's comment on teaching automotive technology with many different learners of different backgrounds and definitely needing some of that translation component. So that's something that like in our platform, you'll be able to plug in any content and you'll get to see those word lookups or sentence translations. I'll show you what that looks like as we go through this. So to start off, we allow teachers to bring any content from any topic. And so in the overflow class model, what this means is the teacher might already have course content or learning materials crafted for a class. And now the teacher doesn't have to separately create different materials. The teacher can use the existing course materials, whether that's open education resources, their own worksheets, or snippets of textbooks, authentic news articles, leveled readers, whatever it is that they want to plug into that they already use in their class, they can put onto our platform. And our AI will work with that to create these personalized interactive lessons for the students. And so in this context, what you'll see is this is for, we could upload anything here. So when you get to this screen, you'll see that you can upload your own file. That's a PDF or a Word document. You can upload content by a URL to a site in the public domain, or it could be custom text. And so, Kevin, for example, in your use case for teaching automotive technologies, this could be a training manual from that course. You could upload that training manual as a PDF, or if you created your own custom exercises or worksheet or sample text, you can upload that directly into the platform. And once that's uploaded, the AI is ingesting that into our platform, and then it will be used to create these in-context, personalized exercises for the student. We also have our own content library with up-to-date news articles, authentic materials, open ed resources, and content such as leveled readers. So for learners of all levels, you can filter by the proficiency level to see content at different levels. And similarly, you can also discover content by different topical areas. So maybe you're teaching a course in nursing or in IT or automotive technologies, but you want to spice things up a little bit. You want to teach to similar language in that similar broader domain of technology or science or health, but you don't want to just be using boring training manuals all the time. You can spice that up with different content you can discover by topical interests on our platform. And so once that has been uploaded onto our platform, there's several different ways you'll be able to, as a student, interact with the content. So the first feature here is the built-in audio reader that transforms any content, for example, these training manuals, into a listening practice experience. And so the students will be able to hear an AI-generated native sounding audio, read the content out loud to them. They'll be able to toggle the playback speed at full speed or half speed. They'll be able to skip around to different sentences. And overall, in the hybrid and async learning context, this is really helpful for students who might miss a day of class, or because of the open enrollment model, they're enrolling late. And this gives them a resource to support them at home outside of class. What we've seen with our partners is that this is also a really great way to increase learner engagement outside the classroom. And this is a great way for students who might actually need more help, even if they are attending class. They have that perfect attendance, they're in class, but the class pace is, it's faster paced than what they're able to keep up with. No pun intended there. But that's a great way for them to get that additional practice at their own speed and asynchronously at home. And so the next feature I want to showcase here, and I can show you this at the end, we'll show you a kind of live demonstration of some of these features, is the personalized lessons. So this is how, I'm just going to read some chat comments really fast. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. Megan says this looks really cool. So the personalized lessons is really meant to help you better serve diverse multi-level students. And so what that means is the AI is using that context that is relevant for your classroom. So that's automotive technology, that's nursing and healthcare, and that's basic foundational English language skills, whatever it is, that content you upload and bring into the platform as assignments, the AI will generate these level appropriate interactive lessons that give students real-time feedback. And so the point of this is to develop these core language skills based on competency-based education. So it's vocabulary building in context, grammar and writing, so conjugations, things like that, and pronunciation, so speaking and pronunciation. And so what we've seen in working with our partners is that students, especially in multi-level classes, really benefit from this because there is so much burden already placed on the teacher to personalize a lesson to a diverse audience. And within that, if you think about 2 intermediate level students learning English, no 2 intermediate ESL students are exactly the same in terms of their ability set. And so the idea for the AI is how can we take that adaptive learning to the next level and personalize not only to the level of proficiency, but also to the different unique pain points in skills-based education. So that's pronunciation for some folks, and that's grammar and vocabulary for others, and a mix or convex combination of those for yet others. And so what we're trying to do with our AI is to meet students where they are by crafting these skills-based exercises at their level, targeting their unique pain points based on the content and the context that matters for them. And apologies for the video here. I will show you some of this live at the end. So one example of the kinds of exercises that you'll see is pronunciation. And so what you'll see here is students are able to practice their pronunciation. So they were able to listen to that read out loud. They're able to record themselves. And then now they can see that instant real-time AI feedback on how they did. So they get the traffic lights colors. So green means that they got that right. Yellow, orange means they need a little bit more practice with it, and red means that's a weak area for them. And so what we use is a neural acoustic model. So it's an AI model that is trained on hundreds of non-native accented speech patterns in English. And the beauty of that is the AI is predicting comprehensibility and understandability, as opposed to getting students to reduce their accent. And so what does that mean just empirically in the field? It means that students are able to gain a lot more confidence because a lot of English language learners that we've worked with, they might have the vocabulary, they have the grammar, they can even put these pieces together, but they really struggle with that confidence component. They really struggle to actually open their mouths and speak because that's really intimidating. And so what our AI is doing is, because it's predicting on comprehensibility, it's given these students a lot more confidence to say, I can be understood. I can be understood in the context of work, of workforce training, whatever it is that matters to me. And that has been a huge motivational boost. And then, of course, on the teacher side, this also has saved teachers hours of grading time. Traditionally, you would have to download the audio files. You'd have to craft the exercise from the content, download the audio files and then listen to them and spend hours on a weekend doing that, and then grading these and submitting that feedback to each student. And so not only is that a huge burden on each individual teacher to craft the personalized pronunciation exercise for each of their 30 or 40 students in the class, but it's also limiting the number of high quality exercises and feedback loops that the student can engage in on a daily basis. And so the beauty of this, doing this with AI, is that it's really scalable, yet without sacrificing that personalization aspect. So you'll see, you can hear your own pronunciation, and you'll also be able to hear what an example speaker might sound like. So the next feature I want to show you is the AI tutor that is really meant to tie all these pieces together. So the AI tutor is something that is equipped with each student. So every student in their account will have access to their own personal AI tutor who supports them with Q&A on demand 24/7, because AI doesn't sleep outside of the class. And for those working in in-person contexts, this can also be used in the flow of the classroom. And the way that works is students might be watching their teacher talk about a concept, or even engaged in peer-to-peer collaborative work. But on the side, they might have a question that they're either embarrassed about asking, or they just want a quick check and they don't want to disrupt the flow of the classroom. What they can do is they can open up the AI tutor and just ask a really quick question to get clarification on a grammar point, to get additional explanations of what a vocabulary word means in context, or even to get some quick writing feedback and grammar corrections. And crucially, the AI tutor is also able to respond in the native language of the learner, and able to do this in over 100 languages. And so a couple things I want to call out. I'll start by asking, how many of you in the audience today are using ChatGPT or any other kind, Bard, any other kind of large language model to create lesson plans today? By a show of, you can give me a thumbs up or write it in the chat. Megan says, nope. Anyone else? Anyone using anything to create lesson plans? So in our experience with some of our educators that we've worked with, some folks will have, some experience using ChatGPT or other LLMs to build a lesson plan. But the challenge is, even when you have that lesson plan that's now, maybe you have 3 versions of the lesson plan that's tailored to beginners, intermediate learners, and advanced learners, that lesson plan doesn't kind of deliver itself, and isn't an end-to-end exercise that a student can actually learn with. It's not student-centered. Like, lessons plans are made for us as teachers, but how do we then bridge that gap in translating this tailored lesson plan into something that the student can actually engage with and use? And so what we're doing with our platform is trying to do that end to end. So this teacher is creating the content and having agency over the pace of the unit and what to teach and how to teach it. And the AI basically plugs in there to create that personalization. And so with something like the AI tutor, the way we kind of compare it to ChatGPT is, I would say you should think of this as ChatGPT, but made for English language learners. So if you think about ChatGPT just from the AI background side of things, it's trained on data that's made for native speakers. It's trained on Wikipedia, on New York Times articles, on discussions and conversations in online public fora. This is not something that's friendly for an ESL learner. And so what we are doing is, can we bridge that gap? Can we make this AI more responsive and more appropriate for the English language learner? And so what the AI tutor does is it will, as you're learning as a student, it will learn your level and it will adapt and it will adjust its responses based on your level. So it's really meeting you where you are. And if you need the extra support, you can talk to it in your native language and it will also respond in kind. And again, addressing the asynchronous context, this is really valuable for students who are either learning entirely asynchronously, so they don't have the traditional kinds of touch points with a teacher face-to-face or in a Zoom room. And it's also really useful for students who might have missed class or enrolled late. And this is a way for them to get caught up at their own pace and learn with this AI tutor. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about classroom integration and how that actually works for teachers. So we do a couple things to help make onboarding as seamless as possible. So the first is that we support single sign-on. So on the student side, we work with a lot of students who have digital literacy diversity in terms of what they're able to do and how the ease of navigation of different technology tools. And so the single sign-on means that if your classroom already uses something like Google Classroom or Workspace, this makes it really easy for students to one-click sign on to our platform. There's also, as you'll see in this clip here, the option to manually onboard students who need additional digital literacy support. And so this is a way for teachers to create that account for the student themselves. On the teacher side, you'll see that everything is meant to be really lightweight. We're not meant to be an entire LMS. We're meant to be a lightweight dashboard and a very lightweight process for teachers to get onboarded. So once it loops back around, I'll walk you through what's happening here. So this is adding that student. So it's one click to create a class, create a new class. It's one click to invite students. You can invite them by sharing a class code, a link, or sending them an email. And so the point of having all of these different ways to get students onboarded is to support the diverse digital literacy that, especially in adult learners, that we see a lot. I also want to call out that while we are not in LTI, our link, we do support link embedding in all major LMS setups. So you can embed our assignment link in, for example, a Canvas page, and you can also create your own classes. And so all the content that goes into these classes, you can take the assignment link, embed that into your Canvas page, for example, and send that to your students. They would click on the link, they would be brought to our platform because our models and everything is hosted on our platform. But it would be very seamless for them to do that. And all of the data would be piped back to you in your dashboard. So I want to conclude by talking about a couple of the learning outcomes that we're most excited about in terms of our platform and our work with our partners. So the first is the idea of increased vocabulary acquisition because of the in-context learning. So because all of the exercises that the AI is generating are crafted from the content itself and then leveled and then personalized, this means that when students are learning vocabulary, it's a lot stickier. It means that they're learning it in the contexts and the use cases and usages that matter for them. And then the second and third kind of relate to one another, especially in the asynchronous and hybrid models. It's really important for students to feel supported and have that learner engagement both inside and outside the classroom. And that's something that we've seen in terms of students feeling like they're engaged better because they have exercises that are appropriate for the level, if they're in a multi-level class especially. And also students feeling like they have support, because even when they go home, they can hear the audio reader read back the lesson to them. They can also engage with their AI tutor to get additional explanations and support with the content. And then with the pronunciation training, they're able to be supported and practice in a judgment-free manner. And the big takeaway for me on that is we've seen that learners feel a lot more confident in communicating, that they'll self-report a lot more confidence in their ability to speak and be understood, which is entirely the point of what we'd like to do here. And finally, we've worked with some partners and teachers in classrooms where there's high variance of digital literacy. And teachers have noted that especially the students with digital skills gaps have self-reported feeling more comfortable and higher facility with navigating technology tools. So this view here is a snapshot of what that teacher dashboard might look like for an individual example student in this case. And you can see the exercises that are completed. You'll also be able to hear the playback of the pronunciation file that your student recorded if you'd like. You'll see scores in terms of progress and in terms of accuracy. You'll also get to see the words and the language that your student is learning and the skill that's being developed, whether that's vocabulary, that's pronunciation, grammar, conjugations, and so on. So I want to conclude with some takeaways for using PACE AI in the hybrid online distance learning or asynchronous models. So the key is that RAI is increasing student support and learner engagement by equipping these students with this AI tutor that can support them at their own pace, pun intended, inside and outside of the classroom. And how we do this is these three pillars. The first is that teachers are given the agency to decide what they want to teach, in what units, what sections, in what sequence. And this plugs in directly to existing class content. So if you already have a class and you want to extend this to an asynchronous additional kind of overflow or waitlist model to serve more learners and scale your reach, that is one use case where you can upload the existing content for your class, and your students who didn't make it into the class or are learning in an asynchronous model will also be able to plug into this content. And how do they plug in? Well, our PACE AI actually creates these personalized English lessons based on that content. And so our AI will generate these skills-based, context-relevant exercises that are tailored to different student levels and home in on unique student pain points. And so this way, whether that's a student learning in the classroom and they need extra practice when they get home, or a student who is in an asynchronous model and learning on their own without those frequent touch points with the teacher, can get the real-time feedback and support to progress. And speaking of that real-time feedback, the idea here is that real-time feedback is how students will improve over the long run. And so this is a way to help teachers better serve these diverse learners by giving them this autonomy to learn at their own pace with personalized real-time feedback at a level that's appropriate for their proficiency. And so tying all of these pieces together, there are use cases for our product platform in especially hybrid, distance learning, asynchronous support, where support is really needed for student success. So I wanted to intentionally keep this short in terms of the presentation materials, because I'd love to open up the floor to all of you in terms of better understanding what your needs with your students are, especially for those of you working with ESL learners. And I'd also like to save some time so that we can actually look at the platform live and show you some of those features. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys and ask, can you, by a show of hands or thumbs up or in the chat, let me know who here is working with ESL students? Got it. So Megan says, yes, but in their writing, not specifically for comprehension. Megan, would you mind sharing a little bit more about what you mean there? Yes, they have to take a comprehension test to get into the Comp 1 class. Got it. So this is, got it. So this is a writing, you're working with students in a writing-based context. And is this collegiate academic writing? Is it English for a specific purpose? And then Kevin, I think you mentioned with the automotive technology course, most of these learners are ESL students? Got it. Okay. Got it. Wonderful. So I'll focus on Kevin for a moment. So Kevin, can you share some of the pain points of your learners? You mentioned the translation piece. I can show you that on the platform and how we work with, especially, for example, Spanish-speaking learners, but would love to hear how you're thinking about the different pain points and needs. Stop sharing. And while you do that, I'm going to pull up our platform to show you all some of this in action. Kevin says, if I'm teaching a machine operation, they need clear instructions so they don't die. That is indeed very, very important. Okay, let me share my screen here and show you a bit of a walkthrough of our platform. So I'm in a test account here, but the idea is I can either discover content on our platform, and I can sort by different level. As you'll see, all the different levels represented. For lower level learners, we also have a leveled reader and content that's appropriate there. And Kevin, I'll show you here, we have different translation languages. I'm going to set mine to Spanish for now. Beyond those languages, you can interact with the AI tutor to get additional native language support. So for example, and Kevin, I'm reading your message in the chat, lots of hands-on practice in our courses, and you usually have a native speaker in class to help. And so one use case could be that you plug in, for example, you upload a training manual. Maybe this has to do with the machine operation, and that's your own custom content. Or it could be you can put in an image here, a diagram, something like that, your custom text related to the course content. And then I don't have anything uploaded in here right now, but just find an example. And then once it's uploaded, you'll be able to see, let's say, you'll be able to see that content, and you'll be able to do these lessons based on that content. Let me actually find something a little higher level so I can show you what that might look like. let's say, asteroid samples, then you can click on any sentence. You can get the Spanish translation. And this works both in the flow of that real-time classroom, for example, or also in the hybrid and asynchronous model where students are learning on their own for at least a portion of that. Students will be able to read with the support of their native language. They'll also be able to click on vocabulary that they don't know and get translations. They'll also be able to record themselves. This is a rather long sentence, but we can.
A spacecraft that left Earth more than 7 years ago brought back a sample of dust and rocks from a distant asteroid in September.
And so you can play that again slower. You can also, as a student, practice recording yourself. A spacecraft that left Earth more than 7 years ago brought back a dust and rocks from, and so on. And you'll get the real-time feedback from the AI on how you sound. You'll then be able to compare yourself to an example speaker and iterate on that to practice. And so again, this goes back to learning at their own pace. So learners will be able to try that again if they need to. They'll be able to go back and drill into specific words, maybe asteroid, and practice recording themselves and speaking there. And they can do that for the entirety of the content that you've uploaded. They can also home in on specific vocabulary by level that they need to learn, as well as the key vocabulary that's pulled out by the AI. Additionally, our AI creates these end-to-end personalized lessons. So this is one feature that I really wanted to show you, especially in the asynchronous, or maybe you have a course that's hybrid, you have 3 or 4 touch points during the week, and you have one day of material that's something that students do at home. This is a great way to plug in there. So you can create this as an assignment, and you can create a few hours worth of work by just choosing the content you want to teach to. And then the AI will create these personalized level appropriate lessons for each student. Then as a student, you would click in to each lesson and you would get, this is an example of a vocabulary exercise. And I would be able to click on the tooltip to get support. If I was learning, so the default would be learning in a monolingual context. So I would get learners, English, dictionary, definitions. Of course, I'm showing you this with Spanish as the native language set, so I'll see some of those in my tooltip. And then, for example, let me just go through this. There's pronunciation. I'm going to skip that for now. There's also conjugation of different words and different tenses. And so here, this is an example. You'll see a tooltip. You'll get to translate that tooltip into Spanish. And so, of course, you'll be able to interact with it that way. This is a listening and transcription exercise. And you can imagine if this were in the context of career training or something like that, this would help students pick out the key language in that technical field when they're actually in the field and being spoken to. And so this is the idea. You'd be able to listen to the entire sentence and transcribe what you hear there. The AI tutor here will help you scaffold that So these tooltips are scaffolded by a translation, as well as in conjugation, you'll see the conjugation rules, as well as more help for additional conjugation tips. So if you click on translate, you'll get the native language support, and you'll get to hear just that word in isolation.
Spacecraft.
So that's an example here. And I'm just gonna get that one wrong. And as I'm learning, the system, the AI, is adapting and learning about my level and my needs. So for example, again, some more pronunciation here. The material will read at the Johnson. So something like that, and you'll get that real-time feedback. Great. So I'm gonna pause here and look at the chat for any questions. Okay. Kevin is asking, students do enjoy options for learning about our content. How would you upload, say, a question they might not understand? Kevin, can you clarify what you mean by a question they might not understand, or uploading a question? And while Kevin is doing that, I can show you. I can show you what the teacher side looks like. Okay, so Kevin, you're saying, I ask a question every day that is related to the content. Sometimes it's new to them. I'm going to assume, Kevin, you're still typing. So I'm gonna read Megan's question. Megan's asking, is there a rating system for the recordings to help students know if they have the right accent? I'm thinking about a student in particular that was very nervous about that. And Megan, can you clarify if they're worried, they're nervous about their accent being not comprehensible, or their accent being just having an accent as opposed to a quote unquote standard accent? Got it. Totally makes sense. So that's something that, so to just repeat this, Megan has clarified and said she was going into nursing and she was afraid that her patients wouldn't understand her for their care. So that's a great question. And that's definitely exactly the use case we are thinking of with a lot of our learners who need to be able to speak English in the context of work, such as nursing, and being worried about not being understandable and therefore being shy or unconfident about speaking up. So our AI is predicting whether they're comprehensible. So they can totally have accents, they can have a non-native English accent, and they can score 99, 100%, and get those exercises correct. And the point of that is to show that you can be understandable, you can be comprehensible, and what matters is, are you comprehensible in context? So in the context, as a native speaker, when you say a word on its own versus if you have adjacent words and the way we kind of slur certain sounds together, are you able to be understood in the context of when you're using that word, infection or virus or clean or whatever that word is for your healthcare context? Great question, Megan. So Kevin says, contextual information about the system of the car we are studying may not be easy for them to comprehend. Got it. So that makes sense. So if I'm understanding this correctly, the idea is that you might have very domain-specific contextual information that is challenging to understand for the English, a non-native English learner. am I reading that correctly, Kevin? So while I'm waiting for Kevin to confirm or elaborate on that, let me show you all what the teacher side of the platform looks like. So this is a test example teacher account. And in this context, I'm actually going to show you something with our healthcare text. So this is an example for a certified nursing assistant course for English language learners. And so this is content that I've preloaded in this account, but you can start again from any custom text, a link to a website in the public domain. And again, this is a drag and drop, or custom text that you're creating in here or copy pasting in from another source. And so once that has been uploaded, you'll be able to assign it. You'll be able to decide on the visibility of the content. And so this is great for cases where you have proprietary either worksheets or textbook materials, handbook chapters, whatever it is that you want to keep private. You can set that visibility. That's going to be the default. And then you can assign, you can choose I'm going to set these kind of randomly right now, but the idea is you can create sequences of the content in your class by assigning them. And I'm just going to assign this again to a random example class right now. And then when I go into the example class, I have this kind of pretend learner. And I'll be able to see this assignment. It's not been started, but when it is started, I'll be able to see all of the different exercises that my students have been completing, the words that they're practicing, and all of that in the context. Great. Okay, I see Kevin has a question. I'm interested in this technology. How does it get to us? Great question. So it depends on whether you, so our teacher accounts are free, but the experience is a student-centered learning experience. And the student accounts, if you purchase an institutional license with your school or your program, those are $10 per active seat per month. And a typical contract length for the license is 4 months for around a semester, or up to a year. And so if you are interested in an institutional license, for anyone who is interested in that or just learning more about how this all works, I've dropped my email into the chat. And so please drop me a note and just reference this conversation and we'll get you set up. Yes, definitely important information. I should have shared my email earlier, and I'll also share our website as well. So, all right, I just dropped that into the Zoom chat box as well. Wonderful. Okay. Anyone else have any questions or any particular use cases that you're interested in talking through? Megan, I know you mentioned that for your course, a lot more of that focus is on the written output as opposed to comprehensibility. I'm curious, you mentioned also you're not currently using ChatGPT or any other kinds of LLMs. I'm curious what you're kind of working through and thinking about. Kevin says he definitely enjoys ChatGPT. Love to hear it. Okay. So Megan says our system is called GensBar, so not one of the big ones, but we have a lot of international students through sports scholarships. Got it. Very interesting. Okay. Our institution does not agree with our department on getting an ESOL instructor. Okay. Got it. So right now, these students are enrolled in these courses, but they don't have a dedicated kind of ESOL teacher to plug into the needs of an English language learner. So I think, Megan, one, and maybe we can connect offline from this, but I think one use case for our platform is to potentially to pair this technology with not an ESOL instructor if you don't have one in the school, but to pair that with someone who's teaching that core class, whether that's that's a class that's made for native speaker students. And then with the ESL learner in that context, they can get caught up, they can fill in all those gaps on their own pace with our platform. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you all so much for attending this breakout session. I hope it was valuable. I hope it was interesting. And I hope to be in touch with several of you. Okay, I'll stay here for, maybe a minute or so until I get kicked off, but great to meet you all, and thank you so much.